How you doing, guys? This is my review of the 2006 movie Children of Men, sci-fi thriller. Yeah, I guess you could call it a thriller technically. And the short synopsis is essentially this is a movie directed by Alfonso Cuarón, starring Clive, Owen, Chiwetel, Ejiofor, Julianne Moore is in this movie. It's basically about a world in which the population starts to become infertile and what that would look like in societies, specifically the UK. I like this movie a lot, guys. First thing I like about this film, I feel the atmosphere always. I like movies that invest me in the world visually, because that's what movies are to me. They're visuals before the dialogue, unless they're like Tarantino movies. Then it's like a mix of both, or Scorsese. This movie, I noticed London felt extra grimy, and to me, that's an achievement. I have to thank Alfonso for that, because I've lived in London all my life. It usually feels grimy, but not this grimy. Something felt like off. I had that feeling throughout the movie, from the very start, and I think it was partly to do with that. Everything just felt, even outside of London, actually, it wasn't just London. It was just like this atmosphere, and I guess they're trying to go with that because it's dystopian. But I noticed that really resonated with me. It made me feel like something wasn't quite right. Like I know how it made me feel. It made me feel like I was watching something, but a picture in the gallery that was slightly turned sideways or something like that. It's like, wait, why am I in central London? There's like a bunch of bin bags. That's how it made me feel watching the movie. And I really liked that about the movie throughout, whether they were in London, whether they were in this Canterbury, wherever they were, the coast, wherever. It felt grimy, and it really invested me in this world. Like, this world is not natural. The second big thing I like about this movie, the camera shots. Without spoiling it for you guys, when this movie starts, I'll just put it this way: you're very self-aware of the main character and what they do. And when I was watching it, I think goes into what I meant with the visual look of this movie. I mentioned before, when you look at certain things and they seem slightly off to you, sometimes they really catch your attention depending on what it is. I'm that kind of person. And when I was watching this movie, for some reason, again, I kept getting that uncomfortable feeling, and I realized it was because of the way they were filming this movie, that you're really self-aware of the point of view of the main character and the people around him. And I started to realize that this film doesn't want you to stop paying attention to everything. It wants you to take in everything around you as if it's going through your eyes, as opposed to the main character. And I thought that was a really smart trick, as opposed to movies where, I admit, even with this movie a little bit, I'll get to it. Even with this movie, there's things that go over my head, but not as much compared to most movies. And you can argue that's just because I'm watching this for a review, so I'm inclined to be more invested. But I really liked that about this film, that it encouraged you to be really focused on the main character's point of view, the characters around him, and it all goes through that camera work, especially, and like I mentioned earlier, with the visual look of the movie and the griminess and that feeling like something's a little off kilter. The one big issue I do have with this movie is not necessarily an issue, it's more like a personal critique of mine. I feel like this world would be better explored, probably in like a mini series to me, because there were certain things that I felt were going over my head that I could only understand if I watched it multiple times. I'll give an example. There's certain rules around our foreign policy and our national policy when it came to stuff like immigration, for example. That was an issue in this movie where it's implying certain obvious things that are like exist in the real world right now. Certain crisis with like all types of groups of people but I felt like there was something that I wasn't quite getting, and it was going over my head. And I wish we could explore that a bit more in like a future part of this franchise. But maybe that's what makes this franchise so pure. Is one of the few things that hasn't gone into a mini series into something else, unlike let's say The Purge, which is far less worthy compared to this world. But I was so interested in it that I felt like I needed to know more because there was just some big gaps in my knowledge, like why there were certain groups, whether they were terrorist groups, whether they were just like fanatical but not violent, why certain groups existed in this world. Um, why again, like I mentioned before, why the government were operating the way they were operating, like not just immigration policy, but certain things to do with food and rations. Like why was certain foods rationed, but you still had coffee shops where people were getting maybe for all I know, the coffee's rationed in this world as well. But you had this it opens, spoiler alert, this film opens in a coffee shop in central London. And I was just thinking to myself as the movie was going on, I wonder why they implied there's rations in this movie for parts of the population, but coffee shops are still a thing because pastries and all that. I don't know. I'm confused. Anyway, it's little things, but they stick out for someone like me and my mindset. Um, Naturally going into this movie, I wasn't like trying to look for world building issues, but there were big things and like little things that wouldn't matter to most that stuck out to me, and I wish there was someone who could take that, whether it's the original team or someone else, and really kind of mine that material. Like I said, maybe in a mini series, something like that, because this is far more interesting in this world than something like the Purge series, other like modern sci-fi that tries to get things right, tries to make you think, but it just falls apart to me in the execution as opposed to this movie. Guys, those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think down below. Comment, press that thumbs up button, press subscribe for more. It's right there. Do it. Don't be shy. Other than that, salute, guys. Laters.